During past 40 years, in many administrative capacities, as Provost of University of Pennsylvania, as President of New York Public Library, as President of Brown University, now as President of Carnegie Corporation of New York, I'm absolutely convinced that the key to all financial stability is integrity, knowledge, accountability, due process, above all, transparency. As you know, at the present time in the United States, there are more than 1.4 million nonprofit organizations, not including all the religious organizations. The nonprofit sector annually generates more than $670 billion, or 9% of the U.S. gross national product. It also employs nearly 11 million people. In addition, there are more than 61,000 foundations in this country. In 2001 alone, these institutions had total assets of $475 billion. 20,000 foundations alone gave away more than $30 billion. The United States has benefited from the presence of a diverse and dynamic nonprofit and philanthropic sector, which emerged as the result of a compact made by this American society and our government to support what many call the independent sector. In a sense, then, American taxpayers underwrite the existence of nonprofit organizations by freeing nonprofits from paying regular taxes. In return, the government and the public expect nonprofits to be transparent and accountable. They must earn the trust taxpayers give them. While adhering to standards may seem like just a normal mode of operation, grievous instances of abuse have come to light, some of them recently. Any kind of abuse by foundation and nonprofit personnel is cause for concern, even outrage. Remember, both are in the trust business. As a result of corporate scandals, such as Enron and WorldCom, many have asked questions and demanded congressional action. Unfortunately, the distrust and anger engendered by these scandals is now devolving upon the nonprofit world. One of the responses of corporate abuses was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. While this legislation was specifically designed to regulate the corporate world, currently there are attempts to apply its provisions to the nonprofit world. Such wholesale application may have unintended consequences and indeed do great damage to nonprofits specifically and the philanthropic world in general. Aware of this climate of distrust and renewed emphasis on regulation, many local and regional national organizations, such as Independent Sector, the Council on Foundations, and NIRAC, have tried to develop strong self-policing measures in order to avert regulatory and bureaucratic straitjackets. Recently, the Foundation Executive Group, of which I'm a member, spent a considerable amount of time deliberating over how to improve standards in our sector. We adopted a set of principles we'll use to review our institution's governance practices. They include the following. First of all, organizational structure and governance. A foundation's bylaws should clearly set out its corporate structure and be in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. Secondly, board composition. The board should make sure that its members are competent, knowledgeable, and sufficiently diverse to provide credible and effective oversight of all aspects of the foundation's work. Third, a code of ethics. A foundation should have a code or codes of ethics for officers, trustees, and employees. The code or codes should promote honest and ethical conduct, including the handling of conflicts of interest issues, including accurate and clear disclosure of financial matters, legal compliance, confidential use of proprietary information, and prompt internal reporting of violations of the code. An audit committee. The board should establish a separate audit committee of at least 3 members to oversee accounting, financial reporting, and the external audit of the foundation. All members of the committee should possess financial literacy skills sufficient to review and understand the books and records of the foundation. Fifth, transparency. The financial policy, grant-making, and governance practices of the foundation should be described on the website and/or its annual reports in non-technical, understandable language. And lastly, financial statements and reports should be prepared in accordance with general accepted accounting principles and practices and should be audited annually by the independent accounting firm. The President and Chief Financial Officer should personally review these statements to assure that they fairly present the financial position and financial activities of the foundation and comply with the foundation's governing documents. I believe strongly, and so do my colleagues, that we in the nonprofit sector must be accountable, not because we feel guilty, but because we don't want a handful of wrongdoers to epitomize the vast majority of responsible, ethical organizations that are advancing the public good. As part of the corporation's most recent annual report, which will be published next fall, you will read an essay I've written about the need for foundations to have what one of our earlier trustees called glass pockets. When I assumed the presidency of the corporation in 1997, I wholeheartedly welcomed that ideal as a guidepost not only for the past, but for the years ahead. I've spoken of the fact that freedom from political pressure is as necessary for the viability of private foundations as it is for institutions of higher education. But so is transparency. Foundations should stand for the best ideas and impulses of the American people, their idealism, altruism, and generosity. Because of this, their values and how they conduct themselves must be higher than prevailing standards. We are accountable not only before the law and the court or public opinion, but before history as well. I believe in those ideas absolutely, and I'm gratified that for almost 100 years at Carnegie Corporation, always in the public spotlight, we have been transparent about our mission, achievements, and finances. Never has transparency been an impediment to our good works. Clearly, transparency and accomplishments are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are mutually reinforcing. Since I'm addressing a religious group, let me quote a higher authority than my usual mentor, Andrew Carnegie. The Apostle Paul tells us that he had authority over Thessalonians because of the openness with which he performed his deeds. He says, and I quote, "You are witnesses, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed." In other words, credibility and authority result when you have nothing to hide and when your glass pockets are on display for all to see. I hope these ideas will challenge your discussions. Thank you very much.